Good evening, everybody. It is 6:01 p.m. on this August 27th, and time to call to order the meeting of the Council Committee. We will begin with the roll call this evening. Ms. Kittrell, please.
Vice Mayor Love is absent. Councilman Allison.
Here.
Councilman Carter.
Present.
Councilman Fan is absent. Councilman Fennell.
Here.
Councilman Hayes is absent, and Councilman Juvance. Mayor, we do have a quorum.
Thank you so much, and we'll take a majority of those present to pass anything on to council this evening. The next item on the agenda is the Council Committee minutes from July 23rd of 2024. You've had a chance to review those. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Juvance.
Second.
Second by Councilman Carter. Are there any additions or corrections requested? Okay, all in favor of approving the July 23rd, 2024 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved. Next, we'll have public recognition. This is the only public recognition at this evening's meeting. You can speak to an item that's on the agenda or to one that's not on the agenda. You'll have 5 minutes to speak. We need your name and your address for the record, and public recognition is now open. With no indication of anyone wishing to speak, I'll declare public recognition closed. We will move now to mayor's comments. I do have just a few events to go over with you. On the 28th is the campus groundbreaking for Grace Place Ministry. That would be tomorrow. That happens at 10 a.m. The Overdose Awareness Day is happening on the 29th, this Thursday in the evening at 6 p.m. in front of City Hall. That's what the flags you see out there are. There's also a couple of overdose awareness signs out there, and this is Overdose Awareness Day week, so that is going to recognize that distinction this Thursday at 6 p.m. This Friday is intercity rivalry game, the Mayor's Cup Challenge. Station Camp High School versus Gallatin High School happens at Green Wave Stadium at 7 p.m. The Big Bang softball tournaments this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at Triple Creek. The car cruise-in happens as it does each Saturday in the upper parking lot at the Civic Center. That's from 4 to 8 p.m. this Saturday. On Monday, the Labor Day, most city offices will be closed. I'll remind you that trash pickup next week will be delayed a day because of the holiday. And Monday is also the last day for the Tommy Garrett Aquatic Facility to be open for the season. Moving on down, there's a Red Cross Blood Drive coming up on the 5th of September. National Softball Association Tournament on the 7th at Triple Creek Park. The Pawpalooza and Pool Party, celebrating our four-legged friends, happens on the 7th. And I think that is all for now. And we will move now to the regular agenda. And the first item on the regular agenda is Ordinance 02408-45, an ordinance of the City of Gallatin, Sumner County, Tennessee, approving an amended preliminary master development plan for Gallatin Gap on 2 parcels totaling 35 acres located north of Nashville Pike, west of Harris Lane, authorizing the revision to be indicated on the official zoning atlas, repealing conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. And for that, our city planner, Brian Rose, is recognized.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do have a quick PowerPoint here, if I can bring that up. In front of you on your desk also is this diagram that we are depicting here. Let me see. Basically, after the last meeting, we asked the applicants to put together this little diagram depicting where connection points were already planned for this property over towards either the Gap or towards Vol State. I believed that there may have been a little bit of confusion as to what connection points were already planned and what was kind of on the docket for discussion. So just kind of go over some of those really quickly. The 2 red ones up here are the 2 pedestrian connections that the applicants are asking to make only pedestrian versus where these arrows had been, are basically on the conditions currently to be as a vehicular connection. That accesses GAP's secured area. If you look right here, you'll see a black dot there and a black dot there. And those two black dots signify where the secured entries are for GAP. And so those vehicular access points would be sending people into that secured access area, which they don't want. So the applicants and GAP agree they don't want to do that. Now, they have decided that it's okay to provide some pedestrian access points at those two locations. What the applicants have proposed to do is to build the pedestrian access ways all the way up to Gap Boulevard, which is off property just a little bit, not just to the edge of their property, and that the Gap will come back with providing some gated access to those. So they're going to put a key card gated access way on those pedestrian access ways. So they do still remain secured access points, but for GAP employees, they can get into those areas with their key cards. Other access points, vehicular-wise, would be these green access points. So all the green arrows basically get you in and out with your vehicles. This one is a planned expansion that would occur later as the property south of the creek here develops. So it would not occur immediately, but as that property develops, there would be a connection point over into the Miracle Ford parking lot area. And then you have obviously your connection to Nashville Pike here and over to Harris Lane here. The point of the proposed condition of approval was stated kind of at the end. It says this will allow for connectivity for residents that might work at Gap or attend Ball State without having to access Nashville Pike. So there is connectivity without having to access Nashville Pike in this location, that albeit would be future, but still would provide that access point for that to occur for vehicles. This one also, vehicular access can get you out to that road and then straight up and then right back to the Gap Boulevard entry point where the gate is, so you can get in with your vehicle if you need to be able to access it without getting to Nashville Pike. Obviously, the pedestrian access points would occur there, so that really kind of solves that concern without having to cause any additional access points through private property. They did notate ownership on here, so you can see this particular side property is owned by Miracle Ford. Volunteer State does own these, but again, an access way behind Miracle Ford would be somewhat of a difficulty because we don't own that property and neither does this applicant. So that would be considered a taking if we were to try to require them to provide some sort of access point moving that direction. I know the applicants are here and may want to expound upon what I've said, but they're asking for this condition to be revised to reduce the two access points up here to be pedestrian only and be able to continue on with their project.
I appreciate the visual they provided. That's very helpful. And I regret that I had to leave the last meeting where it was decided to defer this to this meeting. You know, planning's okay with this, engineering's okay with this, makes total sense. And I feel like I'm the one that kind of derailed it, being concerned about access to the college and the Gap. And so they've done what they can do. But I'm sorry, I don't mean to step on y'all's toes. If you guys would like to speak, I welcome you forward.
Thank you. Good evening, John Richard Patterson, Kimley Horn. I'm the civil engineer on the project. Actually, Mr. Rose stole all my good talking points.
I thought
on
he
this
did a
one.
great
So
job, yeah.
that was a very good job explaining. Just a little further definition. So I wanted to very clearly show that we are accessing our points of right of way, which is our access to public roads, which is Nashville Pike and Harris Lane, which is shown as not shaded back. And so all shaded area on that outside of our property obviously is private. So just further highlighting that.
And your sidewalk will connect to Miracle Ford sidewalk, which will ultimately connect to the greenway that the city will eventually be building, which will connect to the other greenway that's getting built across the Vol State campus. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Mr. Rose and Nick? He says thumbs up. I am correct. Good. So,
Yeah, so I was going to say, I'm happy to discuss further, but yes, we are putting a
do
10
you all
foot.
have any questions? Is that a question, Mr. Johnson?
Yes, ma'am. The connection to Miracle Ford was a private property. So basically, I see a connection from your side to, that's going to be the commercial side only. Yeah?
The cross-access.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
good.
yes, you can access, there's a shared drive here, and then there will be a cross-access to all the L parcels, which can be accessed by the multifamily parcel as well, for cross-access to Miracle Ford site.
So we always hear complaint that we never give solutions. So I like to find solutions, and I drove there and look at the map, look at everything. One thing was wrong on your map. It's there. It's actually here. So
Where the private property is versus the right-of-way?
no, you have a gate.
Gates, actually.
Yeah, you have actually a booth
There's
with more on the left at the black point, and the road got unchecked until the two reservoirs, the two white circle there, where there is only basically a car gate with a card activated gate, up, down, nothing. So the conversation we had was to make sure we gave access to volunteer state, because that was kind of what that got approved with, and that was the plan, was to provide apartment to student Vol State. So the idea was not to go back to Nashville Park. And I just talked to you before, but if you look at that road, there is nothing there, just a road, a simple gate. There is no fence. I know it's a private property, but there is no fence, there is nothing. People can just walk there and go all the way to basically where you put your first red arrow, where at that point there is actually, if I remember where, there is actually another checkpoint. If they were moving that gate all the way to your red arrow, and if they really want to protect the staff, put a simple fence on the other side of the road, that would give an access to Gap Public. But we would take a piece of, like we do on subdivision, I don't know, they could give that piece of road, was not that big, to the city, make it a public road, and just move their checkpoint higher, so we could have connection on top of the property to the Gap Boulevard. That was my option. I know people don't like to give piece of land, and maybe the Gap would not want to do that, but I would encourage you to go back to the Gap and ask them if that would be. I'm still going to vote to push it to council, so they give you a nice week to do that. But I would appreciate if you go back to the Gap and see if that would be an acceptable solution. We'll basically meet everybody, give us access to the road to go to Volunteer State, and meet the initial requirement we had was not to get Volunteer State to your apartment without having to go to Nashville Park. So I'm I'm asking you if you could do that and get back to me.
We would appreciate this being pushed through, and we can have continued conversations. You are right. There is a gate right here, and there's a gate right there.
Yeah.
The black dot was signalizing, or is the end of public right of way, and so
And the only issue I see was actually access behind the gate is access to the two reservoirs. I don't know what they are, water or whatever they are here.
water tanks or fuel tanks, whatever they are.
That can,
So yes, and so you're saying the request to GAP that we would take back is, could that gate be moved
Yeah.
past this red line, and then that private property given up as public right-of-way? So we can make that ask. We've had plenty of discussions with them on this, and so, I mean, we can go back and make the ask.
I appreciate that.
All you can do is ask, so.
This piece of property, I know the Galvins owned all the Miracle Ford property right there, but I think this original
They
piece.
don't own it anymore.
Well, I know that.
Oh.
That's why I said they used to. But also, this piece of property is also part of theirs at one time, correct?
Part, which
No, it wasn't.
part are you asking about?
Part that you're wanting to build on. I think that was part of the old Barker farm
I
back
don't
in
know,
the day.
they purchased it from the Gap.
Regardless, if you're wanting to connect to that area, which I think it also needs to be done, I mean, I would think that the way that they have been selling some of their property, that you could obtain a right-of-way or easement if you wanted to go on that corner right there or purchase some of that property from them.
I think the
Well, it's
issue is the
not-
private
you
road.
You can't even make it to, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, that you can't make it to public right-of-way even if you were to purchase this entire triangular shape. The Vol State owns, the state owns that section too. So you would have to get property from all three properties to make a connection.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I would just like to say, I agree with Councilman Juvance. I would like to see some type of private connection for students that may reside there, simply because it seemed when the project was first presented that it would be a higher number of units allotted to people that worked at the Gap so that they could have more affordable housing. And then in actuality, that number was very small. So I think that it wouldn't hurt. And then too, it was pushed that this could be a good place for Vol State students to live. And so I think that we should have a connection for them to be able to walk to campus.
You have that.
Not on Nashville Pike.
You have the pedestrian access. You don't have the vehicular access. But it kind of, I mean, truly, they're turning right to get to Vol State, and they've got lights at both places if they're driving back to Vol State, from Vol State. So it's not like it's not going to be really hard traffic for them that they can't get in and out of. So they've got the pedestrian access, or will have. And then, so it's only the vehicular access that doesn't take them on Nashville Pike that is not the most desirable. But I
Make a
I mean,
motion.
you're right, it is just one signal down to access, and it's signalized intersections, so.
both.
Make a motion to send it to council with the way it is, and so we can, if you can come back to us to see if there is a way we can do something with that little piece of road, because I think that would be minimal cost. You know, it's just moving a little barrier up and down. I know our engineer is going to tell me after that's probably going to cost $150,000 just to move a barrier like that. But I think that would be minimum cost, and that will stop. So I make a motion to move it as it stands to council.
Council? Second by Councilman Allison. Any more questions, discussion? Again, I appreciate the diagram and the explanation. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Moves forward to council, 420. Thank you guys so much. Item number 2 is ordinance 02408-48, ordinance appropriating $380,000 from the general fund unassigned fund balance to the police department gun range construction project. Rosemary Bates, Executive Director of EDA, and Don Bandy, Police Chief. I just said it that way to stress you out. Not Rosemary. No, I'm kidding. I'm fully supportive. I understand why we're here. We're going to get the gun range built.
I apologize for getting this information out to you late. I emailed it earlier this evening and then handed it out on your desk. And I am happy to go over this, but in short, the bulk of the overage, or more than roughly 61% of the overage, is related to anticipating a few years ago what would be built on the site and then doing some grading work without actually having hired an architect to design the building and know the specific footprint for construction. Nobody's fault. It's not, it just was the path that the city was on at that time, trying to get things done internally and keep moving it forward. So some of the issues that then arose by anticipating where the building and the pavilion slab would go, when the actual design was created for where these things would land and the size they would be and the footprint they would take, it didn't quite match the original site plan that was done by a civil engineer and not an architect or a contractor, anyone building the building. So a lot of this had to do with when we tried to proof roll the property to put the slab and the building on it, it would not proof roll. We had to do some geotech, and then that's when we discovered that most of the area where the pavilion slab was going to be poured and where the building was going was rotting organic material under the dirt. So
Junk
it
fill.
would eventually just sunk and cracked, and not a sinkhole necessarily, but it would not
Right, where
have been
somebody had
stable.
filled at some point.
Yeah.
Cleared and filled.
So it cost quite a bit to dig up the rotting. I'm glad I was not out there while they were doing this, because apparently it did not smell very nice. And then replace all that with gravel so that they could then pour the pavilion slab and build the building. So that's roughly about $241,000 of the overage. I'm not going to go into every detail here. I do want to add in then another what appears to be substantial cost. And again, I don't think this is anybody's fault. After we put it out to bid, we realized that we had not specified an electric gate at the drive access. So for safety purposes, that needs to be electric. It's not so much about convenience as it is more about safety. So that's a chunk of cost that you'll see on the back where I've tried to show you everything that's over. And then this latest issue that adds another chunk is we had planned to do storage for targets and other things that you have to, yes, what have you, on the gun range. And we ended up having to make some space changes because of IT servers and server racks and some things like that. And it shifted some of the space. So we didn't end up with an internal room in the building that was adequate for storage or appropriate for a storm shelter safety. Most of the companies in the industrial center do have some kind of tornado shelter or certain rating of a shelter in case there's a storm in that area. And certainly we would want the PD to be protected as well. So we looked at many options and just decided that the best one to recommend for this was to add an additional brick building. It would just have electricity. It would have two separate rooms, where the back room is the storm shelter and the front part of that building is all the required storage. The other option was to build a storm shelter into the side of the hill. But I don't know that that would have been the best answer either. So, and I'm glad to answer any of these questions and explain anything that I can explain. And hopefully we've been very transparent by sharing with you every overage expense. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ma'am. That's enough for me. That's plenty clear. Chief, you need that?
Sir?
You need that for sure?
Yes,
Aye. Motion to move to council?
Second.
Motion by Councilman Juvant, second by Councilman Carter. Are there any questions, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, Resolution R2408-71, resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a boat storage slip rental contract. Chief Beeman.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Again, this agenda item is a resolution seeking approval for the mayor to enter into a boat storage slip agreement with R&R Marinas, better known as Cherokee Marina, so we can house Fireboat 11. We were formerly at the Gallatin Marina. With this option, where our boat will be stored in a static slip with power, and we have better access to the facility when our apparatus have to respond there to handle a water emergency. And then also, we're seeing about a third savings of the cost from the Gallatin Marina.
You talking about across the bridge?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we've mapped it out. It's the same response time from Fire Station 5 to either marina.
In a different county, though.
Yes, sir.
I guess our insurances will cover over there and everything, correct?
Second?
Motion, I think county lines go to the center of the water, but city lines go to the core property. Is that right?
Probably have to defer that to Nick.
You don't have to answer that. Regardless, yes, it's across the river, it's in Wilson County, but they get the same slip all the time. It doesn't get moved around. It has power constantly. They don't have to worry about it being dead, and they save money on the slip rental, so I think it's beneficial. Do I have a motion and a second? I'm sorry.
Motion by Carter, second.
Motion by Carter, second by Allison. Very good. Any further questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Resolution R2408-71 moves forward to council unanimously. Item 4 is Resolution R2408-72, resolution authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement between the Sumner County Emergency Communications District and the Gallatin Fire Department for shared computer-aided dispatch, records management, and mobile access services. Again, Chief Beeman.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is asking, getting permission for the mayor to sign an updated interlocal agreement with the emergency communication districts and the Gallatin Fire Department for dispatch services, CAD services, record management services, and mobile access. The ECD is changing CAD vendors, and it was recommended that we update our interlocal agreement. And also, I'd like to, if approved tonight and we move on to full council, we would like to bring an amended resolution back to council to include the police department with the same interlocal agreement, since the ECD provides all public safety dispatch services here in the county.
Motion to send with the amendment?
Motion, well, I guess the amendment will have to come. Yeah. So motion by Councilman Juvant to send Resolution R2408-72 forward to council, seconded by Councilman Carter. Then are there any questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Does move forward unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 5 is Resolution R2408-73, confirming reappointment of Gallatin Municipal Board of Zoning Appeals member. Let's see. Drew Schreiner, thank you. I thought it was you, but I wasn't sure. So Drew Schreiner, I think, has done 2 terms on Board of Zoning Appeals. You know, they don't meet very often. He's willing to continue serving. I would ask that you support that.
Motion to send it over.
Motion by Councilman Carter,
Second.
second by
Bless you.
Councilman Fennell. Questions, discussion? Councilman Juvant?
Thank you, ma'am. I mentioned that a few times. I don't know that gentleman, so I would appreciate if I can get just a simple page resume so I know who I'm voting for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? All in favor of sending forward to council, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Abstain?
Okay, item 6 is Resolution R2408-74, reappointing Linda Love as board member of the Gallatin Historic District Commission.
Motion to send council.
Motion by Councilman Javance. Second by Councilman Allison. Any questions, any discussion? Okay, all in favor of Resolution R2408-74 moving forward to council, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Passes unanimously. Item 7 is a discussion to sell land owned by the City of Gallatin at 518 Hatton Track Road, parcel ID 113GA003030000. Nick Tuttle, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mayor. A while ago, we were approached by a developer who is working on the Sunset Farms development that is at the end of Hatton Track and kind of adjacent to East Camp Creek, south of Albert Gallatin Avenue, West Albert Gallatin Avenue extension. They were interested in purchasing or getting a portion of city property that is adjacent to the Scott Drive extension. So I didn't put it on your put it on the overhead here tonight, but in the agenda packet you had a depiction of what the county GIS shows for the right-of-way, and the piece of property that was highlighted is the piece of property that we're talking about. So we're talking about 2/10 of an acre, quarter of an acre, something of that nature. When we purchased right-of-way for the Albert Gallatin Avenue Extension Project, we wanted to extend Scott Drive so that we could have that interconnectivity that we talked so much about through the planning process. The challenge was that there was a house that was there, so that was purchased, and so it left us with some leftover property or an additional land. So what the engineering division, Public Works, we wouldn't consider this to be right-of-way. We just consider it to be excess land, and so it wouldn't go through our right-of-way abandonment process or selling of right-of-way process. It would be a city-owned property selling, which we don't do very often, as we talked about earlier today in our department head meeting. So what we believe the process to be is that you say that you agree with city staff that we don't have really a use for the property, and it's in our best interest to sell the property. And so what we would do is we would get an appraisal of that property and do, I'm not exactly sure on the competitive bid side, if it's a closed bid, if it's an auction, there may be some options that we can have there. But I would lean on either our finance director or city attorney for how that process would go. But that's the gist of it. It's our opinion that we don't really need the property, and the developer could maybe make some use of it. That's all I've got.
Councilman Schwartz.
Thank you, ma'am. Do you have any idea why the developer is interested in it?
I don't know for sure. I think they have bought a couple of other pieces of property along the way, trying to come up to the intersection. And they may have some interest in trying to purchase all the property all the way up to Scott Drive. I don't know.
So do you,
I will say I didn't mention, Mr. Kellogg brought up, sorry, I forgot this, brought up that there is a gas regulator station on the property, and so we would still want to retain either easement rights or at least a little piece of the property to keep that from being on private property. So sorry about that. That's a small part of the quarter acre.
how many acres total?
Estimating 2/10 to a quarter of an acre. We haven't legally described the property yet.
So my other question is that if we put it to bid and someone else bought it except that developer, and someone decide to put something there, how that going to impact the connection on our side?
Can't do what we won't let.
It has a zoning. I don't know what the zoning is, but we'll say maybe it's an R8 zoning. It's going to have certain building setbacks and things like that that would be required. And I would be shocked if it was a buildable lot on its own, just based on the geometry.
Were you asking about the connection?
Yeah, but
He was asking about the
road.
the Scott Drive connection. Is it
Yeah.
going to impact that Scott Drive connection, the interconnectivity?
No, no, absolutely not. The right-of-way for Scott Drive, we would retain it. We're not doing away with it. What I'm saying is that when we went through the process of buying the property to extend Scott Drive, we had to buy a little bit extra because there was a house there, and so we just ended up buying extra property because the house was sitting on a portion of what we wanted to be right-of-way and then the rest, and so it just ended up getting more land than we needed because the house was kind of splitting or straddling the proposed right-of-way line.
do you think that's what we should do, sell it?
Yes, I don't see that we have any use for the property if we can make a few dollars and it makes the property adjacent to it maybe more desirable, then puts it on the tax roll. Lots of good things could come from it.
Thank you, sir. Second.
Do we need to? I mean, it's really just a discussion, and I think we have to figure out what process we need to do. So so you want us to go ahead and vote about moving it,
I think
Nichols?
I would say maybe the best thing to do is let us get an appraisal for it first. I think we can do that pretty inexpensively with money that we have appropriated in somebody's budget. We can get that, share that with you, and then probably get a resolution, I'm assuming, to sell the property based on whatever the appraisal value is given to us.
Okay with that?
And Ms. Nichols is going to look at the various ways that we can legally sell it.
Started looking into that this afternoon, and I didn't get very far, but I did come across that it will require council to pass a resolution declaring it surplus and to be sold.
We'll bring that back at that point. And one thing is you kind of research that I'm curious in knowing is if we can, say we do a sealed bid process, if we can set a minimum bid in that scenario. I don't know. So just thoughts as we move forward. But general agreement that it's fine to move forward with exploring this and getting
Yes, ma'am.
you can make a motion to get an appraisal, I guess, if you want.
Make a motion to authorize appraisal of the land.
Voss? Second Carter. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed? No one? Thank you all very much. And now we will move to other business, and I have a road closure to bring to you all this evening. This is a request from Historic Downtown Gallatin. It is for a Merry Market, a Christmas market, happening on Saturday, the 7th of December from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m., and the request is to close the public square. I have one thought that I just want to check for 1 second. Make sure the Christmas parade does not fall that same day. What was the date? The 7th? No, it shouldn't. The Christmas parade's on the 14th. Okay, so it would just be the L of the public square from Main Street to Water, vendors selling their merchandise. We have the signatures from the required agencies, and we have the signatures of those who have property on the backside of that part of the square. So, for your consideration. 10 to 4. Motion by Councilman Carter.
Second.
Second by Councilman Javance. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, you're supposed to be loud. There's only 4 of you here. Okay, that is approved, and I now will ask if there's any other business from any other members of this body.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Carter.
Hey, folks, I would welcome you all to join me on Friday at the Shalom Zone to support the Union High alumni with their annual celebration that they do. This year, they're going to be having a gala on Saturday to honor the first graduating class, which was the class of 1924. That'll be on Saturday and on Friday before you go to the game to watch Gallatin beat up on Station Camp and win the Mayor's Cup. You guys can come get a good fish sandwich. Starts at 5.
5 o'clock. Thank you, Councilman Carter. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move now to department head reports. Courtney Conjimmy, HR Director, talking about current position vacancies.
Thank you, Mayor. So during the last work session, Councilman Juvance brought up vacancies in the Public Works Department specifically, so I just wanted to give a little clarity to what our current level of vacancy is. As of the end of last week, we have 496 budgeted positions. 38 of those positions are vacant, or a vacancy rate of 7.6%. 28 out of the 38 positions, or 74% of those, are between Public Works and GPU. Public Works currently has 10 openings. 4 have been open for less than 6 months. 2 have been open for around 6 months, and then 4 additional have been open for 12 or more months, and those actually have been open since January of 2021. Those are the 4 that were reclassed during the last council meeting. So there are 3 pending offers on the table, so it's potential for that vacancy amount to go down to 7 positions. GPU currently has 18 openings. 8 of them have been open for less than 6 months. 2 have been open for around 6 months, and 8 have been open for 12 or more months. 2 of them were filled as of yesterday. 1 has a pending start date of next week, and 1 has an offer pending out there. So that would bring them down to 14 openings. Also, as discussed at the last work session, the police previously topped the vacancy list with 19 positions, but since there was the update in October 23, they're down to 5 current open positions. That salary table change did include base pay raises between $2.12 and $3.89 an hour, average increase of $3.03, 13%. So although, Councilman Juvance, you emphatically insisted that I find the money, unfortunately that's outside of my purview. So in the event that this body, where it is their purview, would like to find the money, I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of how much you're looking at. For each $1 an hour increase after FICA and retirement contributions for all positions, 496 budgeted positions, it would have a budget year impact of $1.33 million. If you were to look at just Public Works and GPU, because those are the 2 with the most vacancies, there are 165 positions in those 2 departments, and a $1 an hour increase, or each $1 an hour increase, would equate to a full budget year impact of about $412,000. So just wanted to kind of let you know where that's at. With the pending offers and positions that were filled more recently, that does bring our vacancy rate down to 6.25%. So that's all I kind of wanted to let you know.
You.
Thank you.
Nichols?
I'm happy to report that we sold our 2024 gas bonds today. There was a lot of interest in our bonds. We were hoping to have 5 or 6 bidders, and we ended up with 9 bidders. We thought that was very exciting. The rates were very competitive. There was only a 0.18 difference between the highest bid and the lowest bid. Very tight margins. The best bid was submitted by Hilltop Securities out of Dallas, Texas. The next best bid was 0.002417 higher than the winning bid. And in this case, we want low bid because that's what we're going to be paying in interest cost. So the lowest bid won out by 0.002. The bonds were sold at a premium, with the initial results being $9 million in principal and over $700,000 in premiums. We didn't need that much, and you didn't authorize that much. Back in the spring, the authorizing resolution was for not to exceed $9,250,000. So we had to resize the deal. The par amount ended up being $8,375,000 and a premium of $745,220.75, or a total of $9,120,000 and change. This will fund the $9 million construction project and all the associated closing costs related to the project. The true interest cost came in at 3.66%, or an all-inclusive interest rate of 3.75%. Once we have all the documents finalized, I'll be bringing this back to you. The comptroller requires that you approve a CT 0253 form, which lists all this in detail. That, I'm not sure if I'll have that in 2 weeks, but we'll have that within the next month. The annual debt service payment will work out to be roughly $661,000 a year over the next 20 years. The gas department kept their AA- rating by S&P, which is one step below the water sewer rating of AA, and that's one step below the city's rating of AA+. Our municipal advisor, Julianne Graham, prepared a list of all the Tennessee debt issues that have occurred in August thus far, and it showed that our gas deal performed very well compared to the others, even when there were larger deals and governments that had better ratings than the gas bond. So we were very excited about the gas deal today. And while I'm here, I wanted to give you a heads up that I'll be back in 2 weeks with a resolution requesting a Department of Electricity bond issue. As you know from their annual reports that Mr. Kimball makes, they typically pay for all of their capital improvements with cash. I think he's noted that it's been 30-something years since they've issued debt. But they have a number of projects going on simultaneously this year, upgrades and improvements, and they're going to be requesting a bond issue to offset their cash needs for a portion of this capital improvement program. Mr. Kimball will be here on the 10th to explain in detail, but if you have any questions before then, he said, please feel free to reach out. He'll be glad to talk with you. But we will be back on the 10th with a bond deal for them, or requesting a bond deal for them. So, any questions? Thank you.
Any other department heads with anything this evening?
I just have one short thing. I thought Stephen Carter might mention it. Would you like to take over on that one, Stephen?
I will gladly take
Okay.
over. The time has come, folks. Clearview Park, the bidding process has started, and that will be announced on the city's website and in the paper on Thursday. So we are almost there.
Else, anything? One more motion.
Motion to adjourn.
By Councilman Carter. Second. By Councilman Pennell. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen.